Hello and welcome to the Center for Strategic and International Studies. My name is Errol Yabake. I'm a senior fellow with the International Security Program. I'm honored to be co-hosting this event on Haiti today with our CSIS Americas program. Thank you to all of you who braved the DC weather today and the smoke clouds to be here in person, and a special welcome to everyone who's joining online. This is a really important conversation. I think we want more conversations to be about Haiti. We want to be talking about solutions. We want to be talking about the future there. And so we're really honored to have Ambassador Rick Barton host this series of conversations on Haiti today. So Rick, I'll invite you to come to the stage, and I'll just say that you are an affiliate here with us at CSIS, but have a long and storied career, which you're a young man still, so you must have started as a child prodigy. But Rick is a diplomat, former ambassador, I guess forever ambassador, and just a dear friend of CSIS and cares deeply about these issues. So we're really honored to have him be the moderator for this discussion. I will also ask Johnny Celestine to join Rick on stage. So he's the chair of the Defend Haiti's Democracy. He wears many hats. We're grateful that he was able to join us today. He's an entrepreneur, bridge builder, activist, committed to social change and social justice, and I think knows more about what's happening in Haiti than you've probably forgotten more about what's happening in Haiti than most of us actually know. So thank you for being here. We're also joined online by two distinguished guests. Ambassador Susan Page is a professor of practice at the University of Michigan's Ford School of Public Policy. I knew her from her South Sudan days of yore, but she has incredible depth of experience with Haiti and has written about Haiti recently. She's was a Assistant Secretary General and Special Representative of the UN Secretary General for the UN Mission for Justice Support in Haiti. It's a country that I know she cares deeply about, and we're very honored to have her join us. And last but certainly not least is Dr. Jacques Thosiak, who is the Chief of Staff at the Higgins Brothers Surgery Center in Haiti. And we're honored to have him joining us in between operations that he conducts as part of his day-to-day life. And he has his degree in general surgery and his MD in healthcare administration and management from the State University of Haiti. And he has been living and breathing all of the issues that we're going to talk about today for many years. So all of you, thank you for joining. And Rick, I will turn the mic over to you.
Thanks so much, Errol. And thank you, Abby, as well, for all of your help setting this up. It's good to be back at CSIS. Welcome to all of you. It's great to have our two guests looming large over our shoulders here to offer their wisdom directly from Haiti and from their experiences there. And also special thanks to Barbara Campbell and the Haiti Health Network for their direct involvement in this entire effort and for their good work in the country at the same time. So welcome to all of you. And I think all of us are familiar with Haiti's descent into chaos, and it's tragic and it's heartbreaking. And I think many of us could honestly say we're traumatized by the violence and its results. So there's much to be done. We're going to try not to go over all the history or what's happening in great detail, because that's so well reported and there have been so many conferences. So we really do want to focus this conversation on public safety, on ideas, on who might execute those ideas, and how we develop the political will to actually pursue those ideas. We feel that's the gap right now in the ongoing conversation. So we'll focus on public safety. For the first hour, we'll talk with the panelists about those three areas that I just described, starting with a brief discussion about what's going on there right now, in particular to get Dr. Thosiak's insights from the ground and from his own very personal experiences. And we will try to advance solutions. And then we'll have George Fario will have a conversation with Bill O'Neill after this session. There will be time for question and answers. I'll be getting comments and questions throughout. We'll try to interject them into each section as they come forward. So don't hesitate. And the people here in the audience will give you a chance to speak directly if you would like. So I'd like to start with just kind of a scene setter to hear each of the panelists. By the way, I've asked the panelists to try not to extend their answers beyond 2 minutes. So if I feel that they are getting into the blue book essays of college era, I might interrupt them just to bring them back to what's your key point here, and so that we do have a conversation and we're really able to expose as much creative thinking as possible during this session. So, Doctor, you're in Haiti. You've gone through some extraordinary personal experiences. You're taking care of victims of violence, perpetrators of violence, people who are supposed to be preventing violence. Maybe you could just give us a quick sense of what you've gone through and what's happening on the ground right now. What's your feeling right now? You may be muted. You may be muted. One second. What? Okay, you may be muted. You may be muted. Are you muted at your end?
Good morning, everyone. Sorry.
Hey,
I've been talking for a while. Thanks for having me.
We gave you that practice run. Now you can go for the real answer.
Yeah, thanks for having me. What's happening in Haiti is not different than what has been described on the news. So far, it's the same: gang violence, kidnapping, rape, murder, and extortion. Most likely in every corner in the capital, but also in some area of the countryside. So we have people that living in fear and facing those violence. So they lost hope because they have limiting access for everything. So like food, healthcare. So and my reality is when you receive some people that come in a hospital looking for whatever problem they can have with their health, whatever health issue they can have. And then we're talking to them and looking for solution, what you can do to help that people. And you find a lot of problem, a lot of issue that you have to help them resolve. So that's exactly what's happening. So the government, the official government, they talk about lost territory. So that means they're accepting the fact that they are not capable or regain control. And we have trust issue among political actors. They do a lot of discussion with no results. And by the time people are losing life, people are losing family, people are losing, hope, because they cannot plan for the future. They cannot, you cannot plan for tomorrow in Haiti right now. So what you can do is plan for right now, what you can do, because you never know what's gonna happen 2 hours later.
So Jacques, can you tell us a little bit about your own personal experience, just very, very quickly, what happened to you and what you're seeing in your surgery center in terms of the people that are coming to you?
Okay, so basically I've been victim of the violence because I was going back home after a long day of surgery, and then and unfortunately I met a group of armed people, and they just stopped me. They asked no questions, and they stopped me, and I raised my hand, and they shot me. They didn't say a word. They just stopped me and shot me. So till now, I never know what was the reason. Do they know me? Do they? That's basically, and they're basically the same people that I receive at the surgery center. That they're basically the same people I operate on when they got shot, when they have car accidents. So It's just insane.
Great. Thank you very much.
And I'm not the only one, because like every week you receive my coworkers, they have been robbed and kidnapped. We recently we had 2 people that had been kidnapped, and an OBGYN that had been kept for like 14 days from one of the most notorious gang coalition in the country. So yeah, that's exactly what we all live.
Let me switch to Johnny. And Johnny, what are you picking up? Even though you're in New York, you're in daily contact.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me. And of course, I want to echo, and I'm really sad to hear about the situation that happened to you in Haiti. Over the last month or so, since there's been this movement called Bois Calais, which is essentially, some would call it vigilante, others would call it the people trying to take back control of their lives. And when I call folks and try to get a better sense of what it means, essentially what I hear is that this has offered people a sense of hope in some ways. I've spoken with a few colleagues in Haiti, both men and women, to say, what does this mean to you, this particular movement? And what I hear is that today they're able to kind of move around. And one example one of them gave me is that, 9 o'clock at night, he blew out a tire not too far from the CPG, and he essentially stopped and changed his tire and went home. The other example is a young lady who I used to work with, and I called her to find out, whether she was able to sort of get around. And she tells me her sense is her ability to kind of, she can go to work, not feel the same sense of dread and the possibility of being kidnapped, particularly as a woman. That's a very terrible situation to be in. And so I think more recently, particularly in Port-au-Prince, where it's really bad, there is some sense that the movement that the people have undertaken has provided a little bit of reduction, not a little bit, quite a bit of reduction in the kidnapping. Of course, it's like a balloon. Kidnapping went down, but as a result, the gang members who control the south exit of Port-au-Prince have increased the price, the toll price of cars coming in and out of Port-au-Prince. But I think between the two, I think most people would prefer paying higher toll than being kidnapped. So that's kind of what I hear today.
Susan, what's your first take on the current situation?
Thank you very much, first of all, for having me on the program. I think really, as Dr. Thosiak mentioned, the situation seems to be exactly what we're hearing, the horrible events. My friends are contacting me constantly with updates, and it just seems as if the situation is disastrous. And every time you think it can't get worse, it does seem to get worse. Just the other day, there was another earthquake in Jérémie. The rains, the floods, the bridges, it's, on top of the violence, the man-made, the natural disasters are on top of all of what's happening in Haiti. I always feel awkward trying to comment on things when I'm so far away. And I think it's really important that we listen to Haitians for Haitian-driven solutions because they know their country best. And I hope that we can help in the ways that are most important.
Let's take these opening ideas and move thoughts and move into the idea realm and some of it, because each of you has a view of what needs to happen, what needs to be done. You've offered some of them in writing or in our conversations. And I think it's really important that we find that vast middle ground between nonstop impunity and gang violence and vigilantism. There should be a considerable space for some creativity and for innovations if we really enrich this conversation. And so that's our intent for the next 20 minutes or so. I want to first hear your ideas and then test some ideas that are in the marketplace from the Haiti Health Network and from others to see how viable you find them. Don't all feel that you have to speak to every single idea. If you agree with something, that's fine. We'll just move on. Or if you disagree violently, just raise a finger so I can see what you're thinking or that you want to interject your thoughts. So, but let's start, Jacques, with you, if you would. I mean, I think you're not the policy person of this panel, and we don't expect you to speak for all Haitians. But what are you feeling needs to be done? What's at the top of your need to be done list to address this violence?
I think the thing we must focus on right now is, as you say, is public safety, and it's the main talk of this program. But the problem we having is the person in charge of that public safety. Here in Haiti, we don't trust them. I don't know if they're not capable of doing that or if they're not willing to do that. But it's been a while since a lot of talking have been done and no result. So in Haiti now, a lot of people are talking about foreign intervention and stuff like that. My understanding is we can, it's like actually what's happening here is like the politician and the people in charge right now, they are fighting with each other, and they just want to, have the endorsement of the international community. It's because they don't do it because they want to change stuff, but they want to do it. They are fighting because they want power. So I think they can have a Haitian solution, but not entirely Haitian, because I don't think we can solve that issue alone, because we're gonna have people in charge that we can trust, and we're gonna have some guarantee from the international community that they're not gonna back up people that have questionable past, questionable integrity, and if the police force says they can take care of the gang, and some people say they cannot, they have lack of equipment and stuff like that. So if they give them the equipment, what official is gonna give them the order to take to tackle those gangs? So that's all the troubles that we are facing. We are thinking here in Haiti. Of course, there's advocacy for an Haitian solution, but I don't think Haitian only can do that, because we're gonna have we cannot we cannot put pressure on those officials, and if the international community usually back up people with questionable past, if they can use that for their political, at least they can use that for to be beneficial for the Haitian community, for the Haiti.
So Jacques, just let me quickly summarize you're concerned with the trust, but you see a hybrid solution being necessary. You do not see a Haitian only or an international only. You see some sort of hybrid. Okay, Johnny, how about you?
Well, I mean, I think I would echo everything that Jacques said before. In my own policy proposal, I have 5 key points I want to flag. First, I want to say that my entry point into these conversations always is from a place of agency. That is, my entry point is about Haitians have to be at the head of any solution. The solution has to be Haitian to be sustainable. And so the 5 key points is, number 1, to reinforce the police and the army, because for Haitian to be on the forefront, the Haitian police and army have to do the job. It is our job to do. Number 2, we need to use, and when I talk about the tip of the spear here, I'm talking about the special forces in Haiti. Number 2, we have the regular police. They need to be reinforced so that when you go into a place, let's just say to fight the gangs directly, then when you move out, you clear, you have to hold. And so the local police have to be able to play that role. So that's the point number two. I think the regular national police need to play that role. Number three, I believe that we have, from a recent report in the UN, there are about between 75 and 90,000 security officers, private security officers working for about 100 firms. I think those folks who've already been trained, who have sort of a hierarchy, need to be integrated in the security system. Number three, we need to catalyze the population. And so I mentioned earlier how people were sort of taking the front, kind of responding to the crisis and protecting themselves. I think the way that it's being done now is not sustainable. I think it can be and should be canalized. We need to sort of work through and canalize that so that it can be organized. Then we can talk a little bit further about what that means and what it could look like. And the last one is, of course, the international community. And the international community has two aspects. One, of course, on the political end, in terms of working with the actors there. The other one is more practical. So we can go into the details of how the international community could not only train, but also provide the equipment, also provide the kind of force that can come in, like we did right after the earthquake, where we had the New York police, for example, where I live. They work with Haitian police. And there was a time where they used to walk the neighborhoods with the police, right? And so I think these five points together can be ways in which we can begin to tackle the security. And so in closing for that, I think that the first thing for me is about, and the reason why I'm here, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here, is that nothing can happen until there's security. And I know many of my colleagues and we have this conversation, right? People talk about governance, and I firmly believe we have to have a different governance in Haiti. But given the lack of trust, which hasn't started in the last 10, 20, 30 years, I argue in my writing, it started from 1804. And so we're not going to resolve it today. But what we do is that we need to get to security.
Great. Well, thanks for a well thought out program. Susan, how about you? What's your top choice right now?
Sorry?
What is your top choice idea right now?
Well, I don't disagree with, obviously, when I talk about Haitian solutions, I agree with Dr. Thosiak. We're not talking about Haitian only, or, Haitians didn't cause this problem by themselves and they can't solve it by themselves either. I think for me, one of the important things would be helping and figuring out how to have Haitians regain control of the ports, the borders. We can worry about the taxes, collecting border taxes and things like that, and duties at a secondary point, again, along the lines of sort of the better governance. But there has to be some way to restrict the contraband, control the importation of arms and ammunitions that are supplied to these gang members. That's both on the international end, in particular from the US, but also on the receiving end in Haiti. So I guess my first thought would be there has to be a way to restrict the access of these gang members to the control of the ports and borders, or take it back. That had happened 9 months ago, a while ago, when the ports had been under the control of the gangs, and with some negotiations, and I know there's a whole bunch of underlying issues, there was the ports were, at least some of them, kind of given back. So I think that there's a lot of work that could be done on that front. We constantly talk about reinforcing the police with equipment and training, but we've been doing that also, and it hasn't worked. So I don't know, absent a stronger force coming in, I'm not really sure how that can be done, to be frank. But my first priority in, at least if you can get control of the borders and the ports and the ammunitions and weapons that are coming in, and then the circulation of them, that would be one big start.
Thank you. Thank you. Sure.
Yeah, I just wanted, I mean, I think that the question of the police not sufficiently responding to the challenge is a fair one. But I think I always want to step back and put things into context, right? We have about, 9,000, 10,000 police officers for a country of 12 million people. I live in New York City with 8 million people that has about 35,000 police officers, right? So we need to put it in context, right? A police officer makes $200, average. 30% tax, he takes home 170, right? So if we took, and I'm not defending the police, I just kind of want to step back and look at it, right? And so if you look at what the police has done over the last 6 to 8 weeks, they've arrested or killed about 1,300 gang members with what they have. Now, more needs to be done. And I agree they can't do it by themselves, which is why I believe that the police have to be, the specialized police, and I believe the United States is doing quite a bit of work training the specialized police, the SWAT team. There needs to be more of them. But I just wanted to kind of contextualize the challenge that we have with the police force in Haiti.
And I think we will, let's get back to the capabilities of the police, but in talking to the U.S. government, I think there is a real problem with recruiting and retention. And so of the specialized police, it's hard at any one moment to have more than 50 available on the street. So it's a pretty big job for 50 people to be doing, especially 50 people who are trying to get out of the country themselves, or break a leg, or end up getting stuck in France and deciding not to come home, which these are all kind of real circumstances that we've heard about. So I think that the capability issue is a very serious one, and that's obviously a longer term development question. But how do we make this nearer term moment safer? I think you've all offered some really good practical ideas. Let me test a couple of other things. It's sort of close to something that Susan suggested. The Haiti Health Network has an excellent document, and we'll make any document that's mentioned here, we'll make available in this on this site after this event, so that Susan's excellent report and Johnny's papers and this Haiti Health Network paper will all be available to you. But it really, and it's called The Path to Peace. And it's based on the Global Fragility Act, but one of their suggestions is that we have sort of an outside-in strategy, that you secure the countryside as much as possible, that in an area like Grand Anse, where there are 400 functioning police and several hundred more private security guards, and there isn't that daily imminent danger, that you really make those places safer, and you have that as a safe haven, as well as an example of some of the community policing that you're describing, or the combining of whatever existing forces into some kind of a police supplementing program. Does anybody have a thought on that kind of an approach? Does that have an appeal to you? It's obviously very close to what Johnny mentioned. It speaks to the capabilities of your group, Jacques, and it speaks to sort of your concepts as well, Susan. Does that have an appeal to you? Or criticize it, tear it down?
I'm sorry. That's what have been happening in some of major countryside, because most of the time when the Haitian police force try to tackle a big coalition of gangs, so those member of gang, they try to fly away and go to the countryside. So, and some of them have been reinforcing their security and, try to have a beforehand registration for anybody new that's getting into those cities. And if there's a program that can, help those cities to strengthen their security, that I think that that could help.
Anybody else? Johnny or Susan? Susan, you want to say something?
Sure. I'll just add, right now, the countryside writ large is certainly much more secure than Port-au-Prince. That's clear. So, but making sure that the gangs don't move further afield will be very important. Of course, I think that the networks that exist, the Haitian networks, you've got the health networks, you have religious networks, you have a lot of ways that local entities can be partnering to secure their safety, largely because of the network that exists. But I worry a little bit about the private security and the army, and when we add all of these different units with different types of training, some which is maybe standardized, some which is not, plus the number of weapons that are around. But I like the idea. How we can make that work, I'm not entirely sure.
There's another area of emphasis that people have brought forward, which is strengthening kind of the humanitarian capacity, building up the 4 airports outside of Port-au-Prince, using other ports, improving the communications channels so that you're not stuck with a capital city centralized model that is really preventing progress. Any comments on that idea? Go ahead, Johnny, why don't you jump in first?
Sure. So I want, go ahead, Jacques.
Go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say that's something they put on the top of the last U.S. occupation in Haiti, because that was their idea to centralize everything and the capital, and I think that's that's held back the development of all the city beside Port-au-Prince, and I think that's probably cut the monopoly and the economy in Haiti, and I think it's a great idea, and I agree with that.
And I'll just echo to say that not only is this a good idea, it's actually enshrined in our Constitution. To decentralize and deconcentrate the government is part of what the way in which the administration is supposed to be set up. So it certainly is something that we need to promote a lot more of, to have the sort of the diversity of geography. So you have the South and the North, kind of having a little bit of autonomy from Port-au-Prince, because today, for example, the ports being closed for a number of time, fuels don't come in, that blocks the entire country, which is kind of, that makes no sense, that just one part of the country has issues, the entire country suffers. And so inflation is higher in the South than it is in Port-au-Prince today, because of the toll that the transporters have to pay to get to the South. So that's a big problem.
Thank you. There's also a group of people who believe that negotiations with the gangs have promise, or is something that could be done, at the very least, to secure maybe humanitarian corridors. Does anybody have an inside feeling about that, a sense of whether those that they've not been wildly successful until now?
Well, I think that if you don't mind, I know I always want to make sure our guests who are remote answer first, but to give them the opportunity. But no, I think that negotiations with the gang today is happening on a regular basis. When you look at the folks that are there now, you have essentially the people who have been backing the gangs, and that's my thesis. I have nothing to kind of any data to back this up. But my sense is that while there were political actors and business actors who created the gangs. I think what's happened is that the students has become stronger than the masters, and that when gang members who used to be giving 20 million gourds or 10 million gourds or 5 million gourds to go back to their to go back into their fiefdom, now are making hundreds of million gourds just in toll, they're not going to listen to anybody, right? So I don't know whether negotiations on this point. I'm probably a little bit more hawkish, in that I think there are some folks who are in gangs, particularly the young people, who are probably forced by the older ones, or there are those who, for economic reasons, are in the gangs. And then there are some bad people in the world that you can't deal with, right? And so I think those people they're either going to die with their weapons in their hands, or they're going to go to prison. That's the only negotiations there is with them, right? There are those people. I don't believe actually they're the majority. So it's the opportunity to create an exit for the others. But the leaders will probably have to either end up in jail or in a cemetery. That's the negotiation.
If I could add one thing, I think we forget people are negotiating with the gangs all the time. I mean, we've just heard about the kidnappings and even humanitarian assistance trying to get around. They're negotiating to get past checkpoints, even if that means paying a little bit more so that they can keep their lives. So it's not as if they're not happening. But what would worry me is if we elevate that to a level where it is sort of a sanctioned negotiations with the gangs, because then that puts them on a level that gives them a legitimacy that I don't think that we want to do. But for people to survive, they are daily negotiating with gangs just to get anywhere that they're trying to go. So that is always the case in any kind of conflict zone. So what we could do is listen to the local grassroots organizations that have been working with gang members and with gangs to try to reduce their influence, to stop gang members, stop people from joining the gangs. But that gets into the whole economy and the reasons why people are joining the gangs: for survival, for sustenance, for family, for a number of different reasons, maybe because they have nothing else. The programs that do exist, we should make use of what they have gleaned, and not from this, high level of talking about what works, but actually go to the grassroots organizations that have been working at rehabilitation, mental health treatments, trauma, what has worked to either stop people from joining the gangs or when they leave, or helping them to leave, to make sure that they stay safe and have something to do now that they're out.
So you're kind of bringing forward the idea of alternatives to gang life, and clearly, maybe one of the best antidotes to gang recruitment is fear of something bad happening to you if you're in a gang. There are many people who say that if the gangs are confronted directly, that you might have an attrition rate of as high as 80 or 90% of gang members from the direct confrontation. In talking to the police experts, there's a feeling that you have to clear and hold, that if you clear an intersection, that you have to be able to hold it. But there would be a significant improvement in the life of the capital city if certain critical intersections were cleared 2 days a week. That would be a 200% improvement over the current daily situation. Is that plausible? Is that possible? That's more of a direct confrontation. Is that going to need outside support as well as the Haitian National Police?
If I could ask you to clarify, what does that mean? It's cleared 2 days a week, and then
Yeah, just
5
basically.
days a week we say, okay, you guys can come back in now.
Well,
I'm not trying to be.
Yeah, something like that. It would be something like that. It would be Tuesday and Thursday, there's freedom of movement. The rest of the week, it's a crapshoot.
Okay. Authorized by whom?
Well, again, you've got to get better before you get excellent.
So the problem with that is the gang, they're gonna feel like it's an unfair deal because during those 2 days, so every circulation of goods and people, they're gonna do it during those 2 days. And what's gonna happen? How they gonna get their money? How they gonna do their extortion and stuff like that? I don't know.
Okay, good.
No, I mean, in theory, right? I mean, when one thinks about it, when the gangs back in the days, when they used to have, gang wars, they would sort of have a day when they would allow the population to move about, and then things would start again, or we have protests. So I guess it would be in that spirit. But I would agree with my fellow panelists here. I mean, I think again, it's a balloon, right? I mean, the extent to which you give people the opportunity to move around 2 days when they had 0 days, it's a move in the right direction. But the concern is that one, whatever the gangs miss out on those 2 days, they'll make up for, right? But the other 5 days. And so I think the second one is that it would create a sort of sense of normalcy that we've sort of institutionalized this process of, okay, we'll just sort of live 2 days and then we'll just stay indoor for 5 kind of thing. So that's the challenge.
Well, I think what you've presented, and there's clearly in the marketplace a lot of creativity, but at the end of the day, people are going to have to make a couple of choices, and many of the choices are for 5 or 10 year improvements. So that almost nobody believes that the Haitian National Police can be rebuilt in less than 5 years. That doesn't really take care of this immediate challenge that we have right now. And it suggests that things could be a lot worse before they're actually become capable. So I would say with all of these ideas, and maybe we can shift into sort of who can execute these things. And let's start a little bit with the Haitian National Police, because I think that is a good place to start. There's an expectation, but we've heard that there are issues of salary payments. There's clearly an issue of revenue. Most of the democratic governments that assist Haiti cannot provide lethal assistance to them. So they're really left with training and communications. So what's your take on that? Let's just run through some of the logical Haitian partners. Susan, you've mentioned the civil society partners, as whether we can improve their effectiveness, so they're doing a little bit more in this public safety space than perhaps they have been. Where do you want to start? So who would like to start in the Haitian National Police? Susan, did you get much exposure to them when you were there in your role? And
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the old days, the benchmark was always the numbers. If we get to X number of HNP, then, it's sort of a win. But we're never taking into account attrition, how the quality, and so, when Johnny talks about salary and the numbers of police, and they're only 9,500, when you compare that with other big cities, yeah, but that's not really what we're talking about alone, because it isn't just about the numbers. It's that the police have been infiltrated by the same gangs, they have loyalties that are not to the people. Again, some of that is, yes, there's low pay. There are all of the other reasons that make them be on the take. But that goes back to Dr. Thosiak's point, which is there's no trust. The social contract has been broken. So constantly reinforcing that same broken model, I don't see how that gets us over the trust issue. And then talking about adding in the Army, which, as everyone knows, had been disbanded formally. But if we're going to work with the police, then we have to make sure that the equipment, which is, as you said, not lethal, then does it actually get to where it's supposed to go? And making sure that we contain the rest of the lethal weapons that are getting across. So those are some of my thoughts.
Just to interject one thing, it's my understanding that almost 80% of the people that are going through the lie detector tests of the Haitian recruits are passing the lie detector, which is a much higher rate than other countries, which is kind of surprising. I think that one of the dangers, obviously, in any of these situations is that these people live in communities that are controlled by the gangs, and they have to travel through areas that are controlled by the gangs. And so compromises are inevitable, and whether those compromises are deep-seated questions of integrity or corruption, or whether they are the basic facts of life, is the sort of calculation that we have to take into account.
Yeah, Susan, I agree with everything, right, that Susan mentioned. The challenge for me is, and that challenge, as I think about it, has led to a bias that I've developed. And the bias that I've developed is that there is no solution without Haitians, and there is no Haitian solution without a Haitian force. There is zero, well, let me should say zero, maybe it's too strong. There's very little appetite today for a year and a half from an election for international community to send force to Haiti at a level that could pacify the country. And today, for President Biden to have someone, a young American soldier, to have a toothache in Haiti. And so at the end of the day, we are left with what we have. And that is the Haitian police, with all of its warts and problem. And I absolutely agree that those things are real, right? And that's why I'm triangulating a little bit, right? And my triangulation takes the Haitian police, because I would argue that there are good police. If there weren't good police officers, the gang wouldn't be killing them in the way that they are doing today. So there are good ones. Number two, we have the Army. The Army has 2,000 people in it, right? Maybe it's maybe a little bit more than that. I'm not sure, of the structure and all that kind of stuff, but they're there, and they've been trained. So what I'm trying to think about when I think about this issue, I'm trying to think about how do we move away from having a civil war, having the people go out and try to defend themselves alone, right? So then I have the police, a very limited amount that are in the specialized forces. I have the regular police, who I know have challenges because they're prone to abuse, they're prone to, trying to extract money from people as well, which is why I would like to make sure that we have a program like having other police officers from other countries come in and supplement them as they fill up the commissariat, right? You have then the population. This Bois-Calais movement, on the negative side, good people have been caught up in it, right? Meaning that there are innocent people who were not gang members who got killed, and people try to solve their issues and whatnot. And this is why I kind of been thinking about why, for example, I live in New York, and 3 examples very quickly in New York. In the Jewish community in New York, right, they have self-managed security. They don't carry weapons. They have a whistle, and they have walkie-talkies, and they are in good connections with the police that is in their areas. You can have that. We used to have the what's his name? The angel. Oh my God, the angel. the
Guardian
guardian angels, right? Which were trained, again, visibly dressed, were kind of, I mean, security is about sort of a perception as well, right?
It's a street role.
It's a street role, right? And then you have auxiliary police.
Yeah.
And auxiliary police I like, but I know it's difficult in the Haitian context because of the trust issue. They very quickly look like the makuts, right? People have that, we locked in that. So I want to triangulate, but at the end of the day, there's no other choice. Like, nobody else is going to come in and police Haiti for Haiti. So we have to figure out, how do we work with what we have?
So one of the things that you've mentioned and that others have as well, the number seems to be in question, but there are 75,000 private security people. A single program in Grand Anse has essentially a $400,000 budget line to protect their own NGO in that area. They work closely with the police naturally, but that's $5,000 per security person. The Haitian police, with bonuses for action and for facing, for street life and whatnot, probably make about $6,000. But that's a liquidity bundle that is not in the public domain. If you have a group of police who are not getting paid, and you have a $400 million budget line, 400 million, if you take 80,000 as sort of a base number nationwide, there's the potential for those two things to come together and to create a more robust marketplace of whatever you're going to do with it. You call it auxiliary police. They've got to be highly that's why the decentralized model is a better one than the centralized model, because you're never going to be able to run something like this from the center.
And just one last thing I want to add, because I would be remiss if I didn't, is the role that the diaspora has to play. I think in that marketplace, we haven't offered the diaspora a package, right? That they can, a bundle that they can buy into, right? And I think that that's another piece that we could be thinking about in this marketplace that could be part of the solution.
I mean, I think we're all in agreement that the precondition for progress is the freedom of movement, freedom of assembly, freedom of speech, and you're not going to have any of those unless you have near-term public safety. And right now, that's just not happening. What about some of the political leaders? Why is there and maybe George can get to this in a little greater detail, but why is there such a shortage of public safety ideas in virtually all of the documents of any of the political leaders of the country?
That's a, Jacques, I don't know if you're in Haiti and you deal with those folks. I don't know how you think about them, but I mean, there are some, I was in conversation with Senator Leblanc, who's part of a new coalition that is forming that has 8 large political parties plus La Valasse and Montana. And they are thinking about the issues of security. I think part of what the challenge is that in this fog in this political fog, while what should be the key selling point is security, they're not selling that. And so I know they're talking about it. I know they're thinking about it. I know that last week, for example, we had a meeting with a security working group that is made up of former Army officers and former police, Director General police officers who are thinking about the issue of security and offering solutions. But again, for some reason, while that is the question, for some reason that's not breaking through in the imaginary of the population because the issues are so immediate and the solutions seems to be so far away that they're not nothing has caught on yet. But some of them are thinking about it.
Susan.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I think part of the problem is that we're trying right now to talk about security as if it is detached from politics, which is about governance. And as long as we're not talking about governance, we're not also going to address the security issue. So as long as there's rampant corruption, impunity, the violence will continue because no one is ever held to account. So to me, at least, yes, we have to work with, Haitians have to work with what's in front of Haiti. The arguments have been made by some different groups, different individuals about an outside force. Obviously, that's not happening. Whether it happens or not, who knows? But if we don't address the impunity and governance, I don't see how we're ever really going to have actual security. So I think that we like to think that politics is somehow, well, that's over here, and why aren't the politicians talking about security? Well, because it's all wrapped up with governance. And if they talk too much about those issues, guess what? They might lose their slots. They might lose their positions. But we in the West often, or at least the United States in particular, like to think of governance as elections. Governance is not just elections. It's literally everything. So, I think as...
So let's accept that, Susan. Let's accept that you're right. And let's also accept that there are things that we could be doing right now that could improve the circumstances so that your chances of getting to what the world that you're describing are greater. I mean, that's essentially what this conversation is about, to see whether there's a bridge or a path that can be traveled that will improve the likelihood of success of the Global Fragility Act or the 10-year development of the body politic and the governance system of the country.
Yeah, but governance is not just 10 years from now. It's not about the GFA. It's about the here and now and how things are governed, including by the police or the security sector. If we don't put in, we, whoever doesn't put in the accountability mechanisms with that, I don't see that progress that you're talking about immediately is going to be addressed either.
Good. Let's accept that we want this all to fit in the longer term plan as well.
I just want to add that that's why I think an hybrid solution is the best, because Johnny has been talking about we have to use the police force to tackle those things. But the problem is who's gonna give the orders of this police force? Because we don't have Haiti. We cannot held accountable, and we cannot give retribution to those political and economical elites. We have to have someone, the international community, that can help us, to put pressure on those people and help us to make them accountable of what they are doing, of the choices they are making for the sake of this country.
So let's figure out, and let's spend our last few minutes then talking about who could be helpful and how you might build the political will. And maybe, Susan, obviously there's been a great reluctance on the part of the United States. We've sort of deferred to Canada. Canada has come back with, let's say, an understated response. We've had resolutions at the United Nations. They haven't gone anywhere. The Chinese and the Russians have offered some resolutions that might actually deal with the arms, the flow of arms and whatnot. You've been intimately involved with all of that. How do you think we get to the point where some of the people who have the ability to help, maybe in a totally supporting role, could take a stronger position, or could do something?
Was that to me? Sorry.
Yeah, I'm going to let you start with that one.
Okay, so again, I think that we do have a number of people who have spoken in the U.S. Whose voices are not necessarily being heard, but their constituents are speaking loudly. And again, controls over the ammunition. I mean, the weapons are coming from the United States. It's not like it's a secret. we do have tools that to regulate these things. I mean, my first job in the State Department was in the Office of the Legal Advisor for Political Military Affairs, arms embargoes. I mean, if we can't provide lethal aid to the police.
So why is this not happening, Susan? What's it going to take for that to become a more robust feature of U.S. policy?
I don't know. I mean, I don't understand why the tools that do exist are not being used. I mean, okay, we've seen a few sanctions recently. That's a good step. But what about some of the other ones? And again, I mean, arms and ammunitions, that's a big one. And that is something that we can control.
Johnny, do you want to jump in on this?
Well, I mean, I agree with Susan on that one, and I think the weapons that are going to Haiti mostly come from the U.S. I wrote a piece on sort of the movement of weapons to Haiti through Miami, and how unfortunately we have Haitian nationals who are using the weaknesses, right, in our system, in our U.S. system, to buy ghost weapons and shipping them in containers and cars and old TVs and all that kind of stuff. So I think that for me, the U.S. does, what I don't know, $1.3 trillion worth of business in terms of things that are flowing out of the country. There has been some suggestion that the U.S. should sort of focus on controlling every container that is going to Haiti. I don't know how feasible that is. What is feasible to me is that we have 3 major ports, which is where most of the weapons are coming in, and we have our border with the Dominican Republic, where the rest is coming in. And so we know the entry point, right? And so I think that it's important for us to kind of, at least as I focus on where I can have an impact, again, how do I use citizen movement to help me control what's happening, have knowledge about what's happening? We also are working on this end as citizens, as Haitian Americans, to influence our elected officials. So for example, right now there is a bill in Congress, S396, the Haiti Collusion Act, which is essentially about identifying and using all of the tools the United States has at its disposal against people that they found to have been involved, supporting, funding gangs in Haiti. And so I think that can go a long way. What I can't quite get my arms around is, and maybe that's happening because I think the U.S. works in very slow, methodical way to get to the right people, I don't know, although I see that they got to Laurent Lamotte this week. So it's the people who own the ports, we know who they are, right? And so the extent to which those ports are not being controlled, something needs to be done there. And then on the border, the Dominican Republic has put up building a wall to separate the DR from Haiti, so a pseudo wall. They have a huge army.
And the Haitians will pay for it.
And the Haitians will pay for it and build it, by the way. And so I think, for example, it is in the best interest for the Dominican Republic to actually help control the flow of weapons to Haiti. But I think at the end of the day, Susan's point about the United States using all of the tools, it's not applying all the tools that it has at its disposal right now.
So those are 2 questions from the audience that we've received. One is, will the U.S. ever change its ambiguous, was the word used here, policy toward Haiti? And then the second one, is there much collaboration between the HNP and the Dominican police? I don't know, is that something either any of you want to mention? And then I'm going to go around for one last word to each of you.
I'll just say I started my comment with regaining control of the ports, the borders. That I think is really essential. And then in terms of collaboration, let's not forget that the Dominicans have stripped Haitians of Dominican citizenship. There are thousands of Haitians that are now without nationality. And lots of countries, including the United States, have been very slow to react to that. I mean, that's not new. It started, years ago. But we don't seem to be too worried about it. We seem to manage to use the tools to repatriate people back to a country that we warn and advise people not to travel to. So we could use those same tools to stop the flow of goods and weapons if we wanted to. And then in terms of other collaboration, it's important that we understand everyone's interests, including the Dominicans, yes, for safety and security, but also their treatment of Haitians. So I think that there are a lot of areas that could be expanded and explored. But if we're going to work with the Haitian National Police, I think it's really important that at least on the U.S. side and anyone else advising or providing assistance to the HNP, that we know where our goods are going and that they're being used for the purposes that they were intended.
So I think that's really a good answer to that question. Let me ask my final question to each of you, which is, you've heard, I think we've all agreed that there's probably going to be a need for some kind of help, that Haiti is going to be, it's unlikely that the internal solution is going to be a pure Haitian solution right now. What are you most hopeful of? What do you think is the most promising way that help could be offered that might have a near-term impact on public safety in Haiti? Anybody in the audience want to volunteer?
Well, for me, I think in the short term, there seems to be some movement or some recognition that this situation cannot continue as it is today. And so we saw in the papers in the last couple of days, Vice President Kamala Harris, who's going to meet with Caribbean leaders, and Haiti is going to be central to that conversation, and has proposed some ideas around some level of intervention and some engagement by U.S. government. But I think that in the short term, the political engagement of the United States so far has been has left all of us a lot to be desired. We're unclear about what direction U.S. policy is taken. I think the White House hired a consultant to work with the 8 political parties that I mentioned earlier, Jonathan Powell, who's going to be participating in a conversation with 10 parties, well, not 10 anymore because the government is not going, but with Haitian politicians, and they're going to have that conversation in Jamaica. So we have Mr. Powell, but we also have Ambassador Brian Nichols, who quite often comes to Haiti and sends some really odd signals. And so we're unclear about, he sounds counter signals that kind of throw everything out. So in the short term, if we could get clarity as far as U.S. policy, one on the political end in terms of their influence on the current government, that would be very helpful, because I think, as my esteemed colleagues here talked about, somebody's got to give the order, right? And so it's got to be the government that's in place now. And so they could do that in the short term. I think that if there are going to be intervention, which was a question you asked before, a decision by the United States, even if it is simply a small number of folks who are participating in backing up the Haitian police to do their jobs, that could be very, very useful. in the short term because, again, security is about perception. And so I think we could send the right signal in the short term.
Great. I'm going to have to ask you each to do this in 1 minute if you could. Jacques, do you want to speak next? Do you have a headline you want to hit? Can answer that for early question.
Of course. I do not believe that the talking between political actors right now is gonna give any response, and that's why I agree with what Johnny was saying. We definitely need the logistic support, yes, because I don't believe that the government in place is gonna give the right order to to have those issues resolved, and if the international community or the United States can put pressure on those powerful people that maybe they can in the short term, as you said, in the short term they can, with the logistical support from the community, international community, we can have a good start, I think.
Okay, thank you. Susan.
Yeah, I would just say agreed with who's in charge. It certainly needs to be that somebody can give the right order. If the United States is going to continue to back Ariel Henry, then they need to put pressure on him. If the vice president is going to Jamaica to have this conversation and the government doesn't want to participate, although I just got word that it looks like Ariel Henry has left to participate in the meeting, that's at least a good sign. I would certainly hope that the U.S. would continue to pressure the government that they have basically helped to put in power to really do what is necessary, and including on security. And then I would just add the last thing is, of course, the U.S. does already have a program with the HNP where they are supporting the HNP with logistics and training and mentoring and support. So that does exist and has existed for a long time.
Great. Well, thank you all very much. I know that we've got to bring the next part of this panel up here.
We do. As I'm leaving, I'll just send one message to the diaspora. We need to get involved.
Yeah.
We need to figure out a way to get ourselves together and get involved. We can criticize the administration, but we are Haitian Americans, American of Haitian descent, right, and we have influence here in some ways, and our participation is important.
And I would say the clarity that you seek from U.S. policy, much of it is needed from this community as well.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, thank you all.
Please join me in thanking the panelists.
Thank you.
Masterful moderating, Ambassador Barton. Susan, Dr. Thuziak, thank you so much for taking the time. We're really, really grateful. Johnny, thank you for those thoughts. I'm going to ask George Fariol to come up to the stage, and we will do a quick online scene change here as well. Joining Ambassador Barton on the stage is George Fariol, who's a non-resident senior associate with us here at CSIS. I just found out he started his career early on at CSIS as an intern. So there is hope for all interns that you too will go on to great things and one day be on the stage. But we've asked him and Bill O'Neill to come and provide some reflections on the panel. Joining us from New York is William O'Neill, who's the UN independent expert on human rights, recently appointed in Haiti. He's a lawyer specializing in humanitarian human rights law and refugee law, and he has a lot of experience working with Haiti as well. And George is a fellow with the Caribbean Policy Consortium and a regular thinker on all things Haiti. So, Ambassador Barton, I will turn it back over to you.
I'll turn it right over to you, George.
Maybe just a couple quick snapshots from this very rich conversation so far. One of them is that vocabulary, the words we use, I think becomes quite important. The term I liked about trying to describe both what the Haitians have to contribute and the central role they play in any solution, and this sort of uncertainty of what the international community can do. And I like the word hybrid, which to me is a more accurate description of what's actually needed, rather than constantly referring, particularly among non-Haitian constituencies, the Haitian-led solution, which is rather abstract and doesn't seem to energize the international community into actually ensuring that happens. The other quick thing in terms of vocabulary, I've tended over the last several months to back off from simply referring to gangs. To me, that's in some ways an oversimplified term that describes a much more complicated universe of actors. And I rather prefer using sort of a spectrum of constituencies that operate within this universe of security or insecurity that goes at one end from the sort of assorted criminal universes at the local level, at the neighborhood level, all the way to organized crime that operates in terms of narcotics, human trafficking, arms trafficking. And then you move to another spectrum which has certainly gotten a lot of attention in recent weeks, and Johnny mentioned that Wakale, sort of this community or neighborhood response, which unfortunately in the media has been sort of described as vigilante, not quite the same thing, although it has that potential. And then you move to the Haitian National Police, which I agree with Johnny is sort of actually made up of several different sub-constituencies, from regular street police to more specialized units. And then there's on the outer margins of this, what's left of the Haitian army. To me, that's the way I analyze security, and that to me gives me a sense of what are the actors that I need to have around the table, or at least in mind, when I'm talking about a response to Haiti's insecurity. And I think that's like, it doesn't mean that I want to have gangs at the table negotiating, but I need to keep in mind that they have certain, I'll put it gently, needs that need to be addressed, otherwise the problem will continue.
You want to start in the conversation with Bill? Do you want to?
Well, maybe one way that might be useful is the tail end of the conversation of the last part of the panel, which was sort of what are international actors, or what venues in some ways can be observed. And to me, there's sort of a checklist I have right now of what's coming up in the near future. Some has already been mentioned. The Vice President, President Harris's trip to the Bahamas to meet with CARICOM leaders. The formal part of the agenda is actually not Haiti, curiously enough, but the expectation, obviously, that if you're going to meet in the Bahamas with CARICOM, Haiti is going to be on the agenda. And then there's a follow-up meeting in Kingston, which I think, to me, the issue there is who actually is going to show up among Haitian stakeholders. And it's not entirely clear to me who's going to be there, but it makes a big difference, and I would encourage as many of them to be there as possible. And then there's a little further down the road, and it bears a little bit, I think, on the discussion earlier on security. The OAS General Assembly meeting later this month, which actually is focused a little bit on sort of the operational aspects of some form of international response to address security issues. To me, those are the three items I sort of have on my calendar, if you will. And those are venues where the Haitian voices need to be heard, but more than that, where Haitian ideas need to be taken into account.
So Bill, do you want to address some of these opportunities and what you're doing right now?
Sure. Thank you again very much also for inviting me and including me. I think if it'd be okay, I'd like to actually pick up a few of the points that were raised at the end of the meeting. I agree, certainly these fora that are coming up are going to be very important. I'll just add that the renewal, one more to those, the renewal for the Integrated Office of the United Nations in Haiti will have to happen by July 15th. So the Security Council will be turning back to Haiti, if they haven't already. It's only like 5 weeks away, so that all of that will be, many of these issues will be coming up in discussions there to renew the office. But and that's all going to be obviously really important. But for me and my job, I'm going to be going to Haiti on June 19th for 10 days on fact-finding mission as part of my job, to see and hear as much as I can firsthand what the situation is and really listen to Haitians. I take that point very seriously. I always have sometimes it's easy to slip out of that, but I'm looking forward to that very much. But I want to pick up particularly the point on governance that Susan raised and link that to the trust issue, which came up over and over again in that very good and rich discussion. I think it's absolutely vital that when we look at aid to the Haitian National Police or aid to any Haitian entity, and here I don't think the justice system was mentioned, and not that it was supposed to be, but I don't think you can look at any progress in Haiti in the short, medium, or long term without looking at also the justice system and the links between policing and violence and criminal justice issues, and then what to do. What do you do? The Haitian prisons are absolutely beyond description in terms of their inhumanity. There are prisoners starving to death in the Haitian prisons as we speak. The conditions are just abominable. The courts, and this links back to trust and governance, there was an investigating judge about 2 weeks ago now who was almost killed. There was an assassination attempt on him because he is investigating some very high-profile corruption cases. One involving the former head of the ports, back to the point made about the ports and control of the ports and inspections and paying taxes. Well, the previous director, very seriously well-grounded allegations that he was corrupt and everybody working with him was corrupt, and that's how the guns come in and that's how taxes don't get paid. This judge also was looking at the head of the National Social Assistance Bureau, where there were, again, very serious allegations of corruption there. And that's one reason why you have Bois Calais, to make that connection, is that people don't have trust in their core institutions, especially the judiciary, but others too. So they will take justice into their own hands. So, and this judge, fortunately, was not in the vehicle when there were 13 bullet holes that were found on the window where he would have been sitting if he had been in the car. So this issue of the judiciary being able to investigate and hold people to account for whatever reasons, corruption or violating the law. And I would say the same thing with the police. When people ask me, I say if I have $1 to help the Haitian National Police, I would put that into the Inspector General's office and accountability mechanisms. Because I think if you cannot hold the officials accountable for doing their jobs, what they should be doing anyway, we're never going to get anywhere. So I thought I just wanted to at least reconfirm some of those points and maybe elucidate them a little further. For me, accountability is absolutely central, which leads to good governance, which leads to oversight, which then leads ideally to have people having trust in their institutions, and then of rewarding the good ones. And there are, I agree totally, there's some very good police. There's this judge is risking his life doing these investigations of corruption. There's some great people in these institutions, but they need support. They need backing, and then the bad ones need to be weeded out. Just one quick point. The Haitian National Police started about a week ago a vetting process to try to weed out some of the bad actors. And that was mentioned, I think, by Susan and others. The bad police, getting them moved out of this force will, again, help people regain some trust in the good ones who are left. I'll stop there just to get things started.
So Bill, I mean, one of the problems that we have is that when the UN arrives in its splendor, it's likely, or the US for that matter, it's likely to come with 40 different programmatic ideas, experts, and they're all going to say that their program and their problem is the one that needs to be advanced. We can all agree, I think we all agree, that the constitutional, the sovereign, the democratic way forward that you've suggested and that almost everybody spoke to is the desirable direction. Then we have the very difficult piece of what do we do next? Okay, what's your first step? Because you have to take the first step to get this long journey to succeed. And that seems to be where we're thwarted right now. So I'm kind of interested in is the first step providing protection to 6 judges who could actually initiate all the anti-corruption investigations in the history of that Haiti has needed? Or, I mean, there's got to be some practical step, because and so I'm curious, how do you get to that? What's your model for getting to it, and what do you select?
Well, I mean, that's actually a really good example, Rick, because the judge survived, or his driver survived, because the day before he was given an armored vehicle. Before that, he was just riding around in any old car. So actually, that is actually a very practical, concrete step that can be taken to provide some protection to key actors, especially judges like this judge, who can then work in safety and not die in the course of their work. I would also argue the vetting. In first steps, yes, vetting the Haitian National Police, which has started. That's good. It needs to be sped up. It needs to be thorough. It needs to be finished as quickly as possible. And then I would also add a next step is reinforcing the capacity of the Inspector General's Office of the Haitian National Police to conduct investigations of police misconduct. There are actually serious allegations that Haitian National Police have also participated with the Bois Calais in the summary executions, which is very, very disturbing. And then similarly for the prisons, immediately have oversight on the prison administration so that there is a budget to feed the prisoners. You would lean really hard on those prison administrators to make sure the money is spent on feeding the prisoners. So again, basic concrete steps that can be done tomorrow that don't cost a lot of money.
My concern, I agree with what you're saying. My concern is that we end up dealing with specific aspects which are serious, may actually have a localized result, which is positive. But the earlier discussion about governance, I think, is something that I don't want to lose track of at the end of this panel discussion. Because what you're saying is not sustainable unless there's a broader sense of governance and trust among the key Haitian players. And right now, my fear is that the more we try to sort of piecemeal address a few of these issues, the more the perception among key Haitian actors is going to be that this reinforces, in effect, the current political leadership of the country. And it continues, it feeds into this mistrust. It's not an accident that we have very rich suggestion of transition plans that have been proposed, and the most coherent ones are either the Montana Accord or the December the 21st agreement, that ultimately the problem with those programs is not what they're suggesting, is that they're perceived basically as governance, competing governance suggestions. It's either me or you, but it can't be a combination of both. And that goes to the issue of trust. And I think that issue needs to be resolved before there's a broader discussion about security. And there, I think, the international community does have a role to play. And I mean, let's face it, the peace process in Northern Ireland did not occur in a complete vacuum. It actually had international input, including U.S. participation, direct U.S. participation. So the notion that the international community does have a role to play in this process in Haiti, I think, is one that I hope ultimately is being taken seriously now. That's why I started my earlier comments on the items on the calendar that I think are coming up, and where I see that international role as really a key factor in fact, pushing forward that consensus on governance moving forward. And without that, I think issues of security are not going to be addressed effectively.
So Bill, maybe let's accept that George's point that the international community has value. How do we get to the point where that value is actually seen in action in Haiti? Because right now it's not seen, the international community is not seen as a net plus player.
Well, I think, yeah, I mean, I think I'm not disagreeing. I think maybe I agree that the overall governance principle is very important. And I was just trying to illustrate some concrete priority. I mean, I talk to a lot of Haitians and every day and getting emails, and this is what they are saying. It's security, security, security. Right. And they don't trust the police, they don't trust the courts, and they don't trust their political leaders. So I'm focusing on maybe that level of the working level, the political leadership, the current prime minister, the Montana group. Yes, all of that is certainly central to moving forward, and the international community has a role to play, whether as it is with Jamaica convening this meeting in the next few days, and with CARICOM's strong support, with the UN, the ECOSOC committee is holding constant meetings about Haiti in between Security Council meetings, and then there are all the bilateral relationships that exist. I should point out, Canada actually maybe gets a fair rap. They didn't want to send lead an intervention, but they put $100 million into helping the Haitian National Police, and they're there now in very significant ways trying to support the Haitian National Police. So I think the sanctions, to your last part of your question, Rick, I think the sanctions are really important, and I agree with Susan. I don't understand why the U.S. hasn't done more, and certainly as much as Canada's done. And then the weapons issue. Again, I've had discussion with the State Department. I never get a satisfactory answer about how you can inspect barges in the Black Sea that are as big as 2 football fields as part of this grain agreement with Russia and Ukraine, and you can't inspect a 50-foot freighter that leaves Miami with a few containers. I just don't understand that at all. And then on the other side, with the ports in Haiti, now that you have a non-corrupt port official, let's see that if they're going to really have a difference in cracking down on this side, the weapons that do come through, and can they stop them in the ammunition? So I think the sanctions, international convening powers, mediation, but it all comes back to the Haitians have to agree. The Haitians have to figure out a way to break through this impasse and to agree to a real transition. And up to now, for whatever reasons, that hasn't happened. In the meantime, people are dying every day. So my focus as human rights expert is what do we do about that now in terms of making people's human rights be better respected, even in whatever little ways possible right now.
Well, I think we're leaving on the table still how a number of things. Obviously, there are a lot of other ideas we were not able to test today. I think we leave on the table how we improve the effectiveness of the international community, how we elevate the voice of an intimidated Haitian public, one that has been intimidated for centuries, not just decades, not just recent years. And until we move from a system of intimidation to one of participation, there's going to always be a need for something else in the mix. And that's really the formula that we've had right now, which has not been a particularly productive one for the last few years. I'm afraid that we've really at that point where we've run out of time. The conversations will continue. We trust you in this job, Bill. We wish you well in what you're doing. We wish everybody who's playing an important role the best as well. And I would just like to end with a feeling that I have, as long as I've been involved with Haiti for 30 years, I've had a deep belief in the Haitian people. And they've never disappointed me in their desire to improve their own condition. And I see people dismiss them. And what I would offer is something that a Haitian friend told me about a month ago. He said, do you realize that right now, 5 of the major universities in the United States are being led by Haitian Americans, including my alma mater, Harvard, including Rice, including Xavier. So there are very few other immigrant groups of recent arrival in the United States that you could say have accomplished as much. So there's something wrong in Haiti, and there's something wrong in the way we're thinking about it. And it's not the Haitian people. So we've really got to figure out how to franchise them, give them the franchise, improve their opportunities, not talk about these problems, find ways to take action. And I think that does present quite a bit of a future and of clear opportunities for all of us. So best wishes, and thank you all for being on this program. Thank you, CSIS, for hosting it.